We've got Phil and Nathan with us. Phil, good morning to you. Nathan, how are you?
How's it going?
Phil, what did you make of it?
Yeah, I think England are approaching things very defensively. Obviously, they haven't conceded yet, and there's a very good chance they could reach a final and without having to get out of second or third gear, because it's going to be conservative. I think now anyone that's calling for the likes of Foden and Grealish to all be included in the same team, it just can't really bring that conversation up anymore, because this is the approach that Gareth Southgate's going to use. Saying that, you would imagine Mason Mount comes back into the team, and probably Saka would drop out and he could revert back to a back four against Ukraine. But yeah, it's not pretty. I think out of the last 16 ties, apart from the fact obviously it was England-Germany and all the history around the fixture, it was probably the worst of the last 16 ties. But England won't care. They're in a quarter-final against Ukraine, win that to play Denmark or Czech Republic, and they're in a final at Wembley.
Yeah.
The dream is alive.
Everybody's dream. What did you make of this whole thing, Nathan, and the aftermath? Because Germany certainly had some chances. Pickford makes a good save, and obviously there's the Muller miss. England took their chances. I mean, Harry Kane's chance before half-time, because there was nothing else to talk about in the first half, essentially, was analysed to death. It wasn't the amazing chance that, certainly on the BBC, they were making out. Those lads never missed, obviously. But I think the two sides were pretty evenly matched. And in cup knockout football, the team that takes their chances wins.
Yeah, I think that sums it up. I do think Harry Kane's chance in the first half was a very good opportunity for a player of Harry Kane's quality that he should have taken. And if he's in the form of his life, he probably does take. But in a game against Germany in a knockout stage, it's always going to be incredibly tight. And England are pretty dull to watch, and they're going to bore their way to victory. But teams have done that at major tournaments since time began. Portugal did it 5 years ago, and it works. So it doesn't seem as though they're going to be here for our entertainment over the course of this tournament. But they've entertained us plenty over the years in the way they have fallen apart. So I'm sure Gareth Southgate has looked at that. He has obviously focused on their weaknesses, which is the defence, has done everything in his power to protect that back three or back four, whatever it is he's playing. And he has sacrificed some of the attacking talent, but they're squeezing through games. If Thomas Muller scores that, yes, it's a totally different conversation. But every team gives up chances. I've seen some of the analysis that they are still open at the back. Look at the way Germany created those chances. Every team is going to get a couple of chances during a game. It was a bad individual error by Sterling to let him through, but he missed it, and England took advantage. And they couldn't have asked to be in a better position heading into the quarterfinals, where they've survived their injuries to Henderson in particular, and Maguire is back playing again and looking very solid at the back. And Gareth Southgate's got pretty much everything right. I wouldn't be surprised if he did change it against Ukraine, and if he brought Grealish back in or brought Foden back in and Mount, that if he went to a back four, maybe took Trippier or Shaw out of the side and put Mount in there, and then took Saka out and played Grealish. I think they'll expect to have a lot more of the ball against Ukraine again, and will want that bit of creativity that a Foden or Grealish will bring. And it's not, I was saying last night, like a lot of people, I enjoy watching England and the hype and everything around them. And this is a very likeable bunch of players. By the time the BBC coverage was wrapping up, well, did it ever wrap up even during the Ukraine-Sweden match? I was like, no. But this is what tournament football is about. It reminded me a lot of, say, our post-match analysis of the night Ireland beat Italy. There was nothing wrong with that performance at all that night. We're going through 1 to 11. What outstanding individual performances these Irish players had put in, what they had done through their careers that got them into this position, that they could produce a win like this. And you do lose the run of yourself, and you're allowed to use the run of yourself, and England is allowed to lose the run of themselves, and it'll annoy the hell out of us, but off with them.
Look, tournament football is about going crazy for no particular reason, right? It's overreaction Monday every day.
Yeah, and that's why we love it. That's what separates it from club football, that you have an entire nation, half of whom are just probably taking an interest last night. They've beaten Germany. They know the history about Germany, the heartbreak that they've had since 1966, inflicted by Germany. And then to go and get a win like that, they're perfectly entitled to lose the run of themselves. And particularly when they look at a draw where you have to beat Ukraine, which, if Ukraine were to beat England in the quarterfinal, would be one of the all-time great shocks at a European Championship, probably since Iceland beat England 5 years ago. and then either the Czech Republic or Denmark. And as much momentum as there is behind Denmark, and as much as I think Denmark could cause them a lot of problems, they are without their best player. Like, Christian Eriksen was still the X factor in that team. He's not there. They have a couple of other issues as well. So now, very quickly, when the hangover starts to wear off today for the England fans and the pundits, now the expectation begins, and that's a far more difficult thing for Southgate to try and manage.
Was there a change, Phil, after the first 15 minutes or so? Did you notice, like, Germany on the front foot immediately, and then all of a sudden it looked like, okay, England can actually completely dull this thing down? Did something shift, or was that just a random opening to the game?
I think that's just the way the game opened up. It was a bit similar at the start of the second half, where Germany controlled things. Obviously, Germany, it suited them to have a slower tempo to the game in terms of controlling with possession, but that also suited England because they were able to set up defensively and plug any gaps. And the Kyle Walker being part of the back three obviously allows that pace to recover any mistakes. And when you've got two protectors in there like Rice and Phillips, who both picked up yellow cards yesterday, but you saw even when Goretzka got through, who fouled him? It was Declan Rice, and he did it in a way that he picked up a yellow and they survived that. And I know there's been a lot of people looking at Declan Rice saying, what does he offer with the ball? But he offers a lot more with the ball when he plays for West Ham. He's been asked to play this way for England. Then you just felt as the game wore on and England kind of grew into it, that they had the beating of Germany in certain areas of the pitch where they had, like, Sterling was a threat for most of the afternoon, as he has been for most of the tournament. I'm surprised he isn't on the front of most of the papers, because he has been their star man at the Euros. He's scored 3 of the 4 goals. Kane took his goal very well, but for the first half an hour of the game, Harry Kane had 2 touches in the match. Now, there's been an argument about Harry Kane. He's not getting the supply, but he has to get involved as well. And he just looks like a player who isn't fit. And he often rushes back from injury and scores a few goals, and everyone thinks, he's back, he's hit the ground running again. But then a few weeks kick in and he starts to look sluggish again. So the positive there is, he played another game yesterday, so that should bring him on. Jordan Henderson came on. Harry Maguire played, had a really good game. So they have been very fortunate. They haven't picked up any injuries. And the way they play, obviously they were missing the 2 players yesterday through the isolation. Mount was an option on the bench. But they don't play the most attritional game, so they're not picking up any muscular injuries either.
The mention of Sterling and the end of the season, like I certainly didn't think that he was going to be an automatic starter at the start of this tournament, given how badly he finished the season for Manchester City. Although at the moment that he needed something, Pep Guardiola turned to him. He didn't get it, but he turned to him. Where is Raheem Sterling right now? If you're Daniel Levy and the phone is ringing and they're saying, we'll give you Sterling and money for Harry Kane, are you thinking about that, Nathan? Are you thinking, actually, you know what, maybe I will take that guy?
If you're going to get rid of Harry Kane anyways, I think yes, then absolutely, because there's no other way a player of Raheem Sterling's quality goes to a club like Tottenham. He's too good. He wins too much. He can go to any top club around Europe. And he's had a dip, and he had some sort of a falling out with Pep Guardiola that meant he wasn't a factor for Manchester City towards the end of the season. But what he has done consistently over the space of, it's hard to believe it's 7 years since he was part of that Liverpool side that nearly went and won the title. He has been among the best players in English football. And for all the talk at the start of this tournament around Gareth Southgate not knowing his best 11, I think in that first match against Croatia, he played 9 of the players that played in his last World Cup qualifier, and the other 2 were injury enforced. So he stuck with the players, and Sterling in particular, it's 15 and 21 now for England. Sterling has always delivered for England. And he may have had a slight dip in confidence, but when he's at his best and he's running at defences and he's causing havoc, he is amongst the best players in the Premier League. There is something about Raheem Sterling that the English papers can't get behind. The fact that he's not on the front pages, that he's not on all the back pages, maybe, again, there's a greater conversation around English football and their relationship with the media and Raheem Sterling's relationship with the media. But this is an unbelievable story. I know they keep going on about it on the BBC, He grew up in the shadow of Wembley. He could see Wembley from his school every single day. And to go from there and all the pressure he had as a young kid, moving to Liverpool at a young age, the expectation that he's had to deal with throughout his career, to go from that to delivering at a tournament like this on home soil, to score 3 goals, all the important matches, is one of the great achievements that an English player has managed in recent times. So I think he deserves all the credit that is coming his way. There's probably not enough credit coming his way. And yeah, if Tottenham get a chance to sign him, absolutely. And if Grealish comes, like, where does he fit in? Is he happy at this stage of his career to sit around and play half the games? You kind of hope he wouldn't be. I mean, he's still only 26.
Sterling or Grealish?
Yeah. Sterling.
It is pretty young, all right. He played in the game against Iceland. Kyle Walker played in the game against Iceland. Harry Kane played in the game against Iceland, and a bunch of them are on the bench as well. Stones and Jordan Henderson, and Marcus Rashford actually comes off the bench that day as well. So within this team, there is enough of an understanding of how bad it will get if they were to, for example, lose against Ukraine in the next round. And I think that makes this a dangerous team.
Ukraine were shattered at the end of the match last night, and I thought they were probably the poorest team in their group. They somehow managed to scrape through ahead of North Macedonia.
Sorry, my point was that there's a rump of English players who understand how bad the fallout will be if they lose against Ukraine. So the lap of honour,
they will do everything to avoid that.
Yeah,
and they've got the perfect manager now. Like, Roy Hodgson's not a good international manager. He embarrassed himself that night when they got beaten by Iceland. And Gareth Southgate, the one thing he has is a very cool head in his shoulders. And as he said in his post-match interview, he had to go in and be the party pooper in the dressing room and say, this is sort of worthless if somehow we get shocked over the next few matches. So I don't think they're going to lose the run of themselves. Instead, they are, it seems, quite a likeable bunch who understand the importance of international football. For all the money they're earning at their clubs, this still means a huge amount to them. They've got good leaders there in the likes of Jordan Henderson, who I know there's been questions why he's been even in the squad.
I think he's going to play the next game, or he's got a chance to play in the next game.
I wouldn't be surprised. I think that's the thing with Southgate. He will make changes again. He will try and keep them fresh. He will change the system. He might bring in a Grealish to try and have a little bit more creativity in there. So all of those things are a possibility. And I wouldn't be at all surprised to see Henderson make his way into this team over the next couple of games.
Yeah, Phil, what do you think?
Well, obviously the game's in Rome, so the Jack Grealish cam won't be as effective. Obviously, every time that the camera panned to him when he was sitting on the bench, there was a huge roar from the Wembley crowd. You'd imagine the only England fans that are going to be in Rome on Saturday are going to be English people that live in Italy. Well, I'm sure there'll be a few that will be able to make their way from other parts of Europe as well. But yeah, I think he will go back to the 4. Obviously, we know Ukraine tend to go with a 4-3-3. So will he stick with, will Southgate revert back to that? And then he likes Mason Mount. I'd say he thought long and hard about playing Mason Mount yesterday, but he probably had an out with the fact that he'd been isolating with Ben Chilwell, so it wasn't that controversial that he left him out. Regardless of what team Southgate picks, there's always going to be people questioning it, but I think as this tournament is progressing, people have just started to accept, just leave Gareth Southgate alone in terms of his team selection. You can criticise it all you like, but this is what he's going to do, and it might be the most exciting, but there's a very good chance England could definitely get to a final. And if they're in a final at Wembley, who knows? There was parts of the game yesterday where I thought actually the home crowd can work against them as well. The odd time a ball was passed backwards and there was a few groans. It wasn't until they actually got the first goal, when Sterling scores, then the atmosphere is electric, and you see Declan Rice trying to get the crowd G'd up. At one stage, Jordan Pickford comes out and claims the ball, and he's on the ground and he's screaming at the crowd even though he's on the ground. So they use it to their advantage when they have something to hold on to. But definitely it can be flipped the other way in a semi-final at Wembley. You could definitely turn the crowd, not against them, but certainly add a bit of pressure. The beauty for England is all the others are picking each other off, and England are just sauntering along nicely. They have Ukraine in the quarterfinal. I think watching the game last night, Sweden are a far better team, and I thought if Sweden get through, they'll give England a good test. Ukraine go through. Now you're thinking Denmark, Czech Republic. Denmark are a better team than Czech Republic. The Czechs could end up taking Denmark out, and then England have a semi-final against the Czechs, who they've already beaten. And who knows who they face in the final, because you've obviously got Italy Belgium and Spain on the other side of the draw.
We just don't know with the pressure, Ger, though. Like, it is ramping up now. And as an England manager and England players, you're always walking along the edge of a cliff in terms of where the pressure and the intensity and the criticism is going to come from. Look, you mentioned time last night. They went to town on Harry Kane. Absolutely went to town on Harry Kane at halftime last night, and maybe deservedly so. But imagine if they're in a semi-final and they're playing the Czech Republic and it's scoreless at halftime, and you've Jadon Sancho sitting on the bench, you've Jack Grealish sitting on the bench, Phil Foden sitting on the bench. Dominic Calvert-Lewin didn't even make the squad last night. So he does have an incredible array of attacking talent that he's choosing not to use, which is fine when you're winning. But if England don't go on and reach a final now, this fallout will be just as severe as what happened against Iceland 5 years ago.
I don't think it will. I don't think it's going to be that bad. I think because, look, maybe if they get beaten 2-0 by Ukraine, maybe at that stage. But I think that what they've done in beating Germany, there's enough sign of progress. He's still essentially young in international management, in management terms, and the World Cup is breathing down our neck. I think that's the big thing, is that, like, imagine another 18 months of Grealish finally playing Champions League football, for example, and everybody understanding that he is as good as he is. Made the comparison earlier on with John Barnes in the '86 World Cup, how Barnes becomes the dominant player in English football over the next couple of years when he gets his move to a big club and is playing alongside genuinely class players. I think that this England team is on the verge of something very, 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 very impressive.
I don't know I think if they didn't win this tournament, I could see Southgate getting a lot of criticism, because you would have a lot of the British press saying, here he has some of the greatest attacking players we've had in a long time, and he didn't use them. So I think the only way he escapes criticism if he wins the tournament or gets to a final and it's a valiant effort and they get beaten by a Belgium or Italy.
That's probably what's going to happen, though, isn't it?
Well, I mean, as I said, like, Belgium are obviously number one ranked team in the world, but De Bruyne is an injury doubt, Hazard's an injury doubt, their back three isn't great. Obviously, Lukaku is somebody that caused them problems. Italy, we've talked about Italy enough in this tournament that they don't have any stars, but they have a great team. But did they hit the ground running too early? Will they run out of steam? Spain, we know, like to own the ball, but they don't have a striker that's going to be clinical, because Morata misses too many chances. And again, they leave themselves open at the back. So it's not a guarantee. A one-off game at Wembley in a final would be a massive occasion for England, and they'd have a chance, certainly.
We're saying that that's where this is going. They're going to the final.
Think about it, Ger. Monday, July 12th. The parade through London. Prince George is going to be there.
I didn't know what parade you were talking about.
Kate is going to be there. As Emma Dunphy said, Boris will be front and centre. Millions of people, no masks on, as the England team go straight through, celebrating their European Championship win. That is what's coming your way.
Wow, be nice.
I think I predicted England to win a couple of times on this show. So, sure, look, maybe it's an emotional hedge.